Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here. We are going to talk to the two of you about the question how we can make sure that countries get their share, the local companies get their share in the offshore wind energy development. Philippe THIEFFRY, let me first ask you. You're from the regional MRE cluster, Bretagne Ocean Power, which is a countrywide platform connecting small and medium-sized companies that are or could be active in the offshore wind energy sector. Tell us nowadays, how are French regions participating in the offshore wind energy sector, and what is your platform doing to increase their share?
Thank you. Thank you for this introduction. So, as you said, I'm in charge of Bretagne Ocean Power for Région Bretagne, but I'm also here today to speak for my colleagues from the other French regions. So in Normandy, Normandie Maritime, Pays de la Loire, Néopolia, Aquitaine Blue Energy, and in Mediterranean Sea, Windhoek and Sudéol. So that's important to say that because this is the example that we really work together, all the French regions, to develop local supply chain. So in France, so it's not just the problem of Région Bretagne or Région Normandie. We really collaborate to develop that at the national level. So that's the first point. So how can we do? So first of all, we hope that naturally we will have a lot of new jobs with floating wind. For us, we think that in France we are very late in the fixed bottom offshore wind compared to the other countries in north of Europe. So it's maybe too late for us to really develop local champions, local SMEs for this field. And we really hope that with the floating wind industry, it will be a good opportunity for us to develop new activities, and maybe activities that would be easier for our local companies to address. So you know that. So for that we work with the top players, so developers, utilities, all the bidders today who bid to the French projects. We support them to build an industrial organization based on the local port. That's the first point. And the second point is when the bidders have an idea of their industrial organization, we can see with them how they can use a local supply chain to build this kind of project. So we support them, and we also ask them to commit for these new projects. We ask them to commit to help local SMEs to access to this new market. So with my colleagues of the other French regions, we had proposed a charter of commitment to develop as far as possible the local SMEs in France. And of course, we support the local companies. We help them to be ready and to be able to answer to the next tenders, local tenders, because today our company in France do not have very much experience in offshore wind. It's quite new activity for them, so they need support, regional support, to have the good competencies, certification, training, and so on. And to be able to support them, we have to have a visibility and to anticipate what would be needed for them.
I suppose it's not always that easy actually to do the fine-tuning to find out what they need to change in their production process in order to be able to work with the offshore wind sector.
That's it, yeah. What they need to change. And as you know, it's a very long process for them. It's investment also for them to change that process. And they need to know maybe 2 years before the contract what they will need to improve to address to this standard. Yeah.
Right.
And just the last point is that we know that we are in a European market, and we know that in France we have also to participate to the construction of a European supply chain. We are not alone in France, not alone in Brittany. So for that we have also collaboration with our colleagues in some European regions. And the objective is also to build some clever partnerships, so bilateral collaborations between SMEs, French one and Scottish one, French one and Norway one, and so on, to find a win-win collaboration to be able to address a bigger market, so north of Europe, Atlantic Sea, and so on, and maybe to be able to answer to their customers with a stronger offer.
You just talked about a European market. Vincent BALES, you're the General Manager of the Offshore Division France at German wind energy developer WPD. Welcome. And you are going to talk to us, I understand, about a very concrete example in my home country, Germany, the 110 megawatt offshore wind farm Nordergründe. And there's a special, unique approach there, isn't there?
Yes, indeed. Good morning, everyone. And this morning we wanted to share a concrete example of a project that any region in France would delight about. It's a project where 100% of the tier one of the main contractors have been selected within 100 kilometers. So when I'm talking about tier one, I talk about turbine supplier, foundation supplier, cable supplier, installation, and an offshore substation. So this is significant. It was a project in the north of Germany, as you said, 110. So it was the old days maybe of offshore wind, where we were not in gigawatts, but it was the early days of offshore wind. But what is important, it was not a project where we had a constraint coming from tender rules to force us to go that direction. So it was not an obligation coming to us. But there has been two effects that trigger this decision from WPD to select these suppliers. The first one is that we are just convinced, and it's also part of our DNA, that getting a regional or at least national supply chain will be a big help for the project. And it's also a commitment from the industry, as we perceive it, to create regional jobs. So this is part of our approach, also to get the support from the regions to fabricate later on the wind farm, because we know there are a lot of debates, there are opposition and so on. So this is also part of the partnership we set with the region to do as much as we can as local content. So this was the first reason for this success at the end. And the second one was because the infrastructure and the contractor were there also. We are not coming from nowhere. It was on the harbor of Bremerhaven that had anticipated some offshore fabrication. So we had some main contractors, but we also had some newcomers on which we have bet for this project. Yeah.
Right, but I understand there is a limit to that sourcing strategy. You talked about tier one suppliers. You can't get everything local, right?
Well, the limit and getting everything local, maybe it's, I was talking about the bet, and I can share with you the story we had on the offshore substation. It was a shipyard that never made and fabricated any substation before. And from the procurement process we had with them and discussion we had with them, we have been quite convinced that they could do it. So we put a lot of forces for them to grow. They put a lot of forces to grow. They had also some regional support to grow. And they made the substation, but they never been able to achieve it. They reach a stage of like 80% of achievement, but they never managed to achieve it. And then we had to take over the substation, and to become, as WPD developer operator, we had to become a substation contractor. So this was a bit challenging, but sometimes we have to be agile. And this was among the 6 tier 1 that were selected. This was the only bad experience. All the others were very positive. So there are some limits, which is the expertise, the track record of the contractor. But when it's anticipated, like today in France and about floating, it's anticipated. And also what is important is that this contractor don't only wait for French contracts to come, but go abroad to gain in experience. Then we have a high chance to make a success of it.
How did you do it then? I mean, the substation. Did you just become a substation constructor yourself, or what?
Yeah, in fact, we had to take over because it was a shipyard that was coordinating all the fabrication. So we had WPD to enter into all the subcontract that the substation and the shipyard contract had. So we were talking about more than 100 subcontracts. And instead of having the subcontracts toward the shipyard, we went the client directly of the subcontract, and we had a team. We had a really task force team dedicated to this, and at the end we achieved, and we learned a lot. But yeah, it was really challenging. Yeah.
No, you can also maybe offer that service in the market if you want.
No, it was really a tough experience. So, you know, it's not our job at all, yeah.
There are also obviously local jobs that are created when you get local suppliers to work with you. Do you think these local jobs can be there in the long run, or what would be needed to make sure that you really create local, like permanent jobs?
This is a joint effort that needs to be performed between the operators, the developers, and also the regions. Philippe mentioned the push from the region to create and to set players and industrial players within the region, which is great. What is important as the next step is also to push to have projects, French projects, because the backlog for this industrial is key to maintain their activity. So obviously they will also have the opportunity to work and to export their fabrication, but exports cannot be the only answer. So it's important to join, and it's the case to join our efforts to get the government achieving the 50 wind farms goal, and in order to get a good backlog for all the industry.
You want to chip in?
Yeah, but even when we have many projects, it's not so easy to create permanent jobs because each project is different, with each time a different developer. The tier 1 are not the same for each project. If we are talking about floating wind, one time we are talking about steel floating foundation, another time it's concrete, and so on. So we also have to understand what can be the specific activities that we have to develop locally, and that can be generic for all these projects. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Fascinating. Thank you, Philippe THIEFFRY from the MRI cluster, Bretagne Ocean Power, and Vincent BALES, General Manager at WPD, that is now no longer just a wind energy developer, but also a substation constructor. Thank you. Thank you for listening.